I want to hear cannons. Three-step drop, goes on the end zone. On ball, touchdown Tampa Bay. Mike Evans reaches up with one hand and grabs it in. Here they go again. Timbo mode, dropping to throw. Winston out again, goes to the left. It's intercepted at the 35. Outside the numbers to the 40, to the 35, to the 30, to the 25, to the 20, to the 15, 10. Mike Edwards, touchdown Tampa Bay. That's the dagger, my friend.
This is the Big Nasty. Yeah, Big Nasty. Hall of Fame Tampa Bay Buccaneer fan, baby.
This is Mike Allstott, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and you're listening to the Cannon Fire Podcast.
Cannon Fire Podcast, brother. You ain't listening, and you're missing out. Woo!
And there the cannons go. Fire them. Keep on firing them. Keep on firing them.
Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new edition of the Cannon Fire Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Rhett Matthew, joined alongside me, my good buddy and co-host from BucsNation.com, Mr. Evan Wanish, joining us today as well, former Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback Shaun King. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are 6-8, and another week, another loss for our dear old Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And it's the same old song and dance after all these weeks. Still first place in the NFC South, a division that nobody seems to want to win. But today I do think we want to take some time and recap an incredibly disappointing loss against the Cincinnati Bengals. A game that was 17-0. And you know, they say a lot of times, if something feels like it's too good to be true, it usually is. And I got to tell you, when we were in that stadium and the Bucs were up 17-0, it felt like almost instantly Cincinnati kind of snapped out of it, got over their own mistakes, and started to execute their offense a little bit better, even though they didn't have a huge day as far as offensive production goes. We'll talk about that as well. Yeah, I don't know how to describe it, man. I mean, just one of the fastest 180s I've ever seen in all of my years of watching Buccaneer football. I don't even remember the final score off the top of my head. Tampa Bay did get one more touchdown before it was all said and done, so I think 23 is what they had, but the Bengals had well over 30 points, unanswered. Where do you want to start? Evan, how do you guys feel about this?
Well, to me, the Bengals didn't win this game. The Bucs lost it.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, the Bengals offense, yeah, like they couldn't move the ball really. It's just, there's only not many offenses are going to fail when they have basically 5 tries, in their own red zone, basically. Like not many offenses, like they're going to end up, turn them into points. So the Bucs basically gave the game away. And I think all year we've talked about coaching, and I've criticized the coaching staff, and many people have as well, but you can't pin that on coaching here, because that's not a play calling issue where there's some things that change from the first half to the second half. Yes, we can talk about that eventually, but that turnovers are execution. Like turnovers are absolutely execution. 4 of the turnovers, obviously Tom Brady involved in all 4. I think 3 were probably his fault. The second interception when his arm got hit, and then literally the ball is just flying up in the air, and the Bengals player fell down, and the ball just so happened to land right in his lap. That's some bad luck right there. But bad throw to Brady, the fumble, and then the fumble exchange with Leonard Fournette. That's not on the coaches at all. So, we talk about the execution, and I don't think the coaching staff has done a good job this year. But this is just another example of when we talk about that execution not being there. This is the prime example of that type of game, and that's what happens.
I've probably been the only person, at least that I've heard, that's kind of defended the coaching staff throughout the course of the year. It's kind of been like probably a behind-the-scenes roar at first with the media that covers the Bucs and the fan base, and it's been public for weeks now. And what you said is why I have not placed the blame at the feet of Todd Bowles and Byron Leftwich. When you have a team like Tampa, and this is probably the most frustrating part, there are some teams, like if the Houston Texans don't make plays in the fourth quarter, who am I mad at? Like, who on that roster am I upset with? Like, the frustrating thing for me with Tampa is why can none of our high-profile, big-name guys step up and swing the momentum back our way?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why when it starts to slide downhill does it become like an avalanche and it just keeps going downhill? Like, that's the part that's frustrating. And, the first turnover, I think the fake punt, I'm not sure if Gio knew or where the miscommunication was. That was the first one, right?
Yeah, technically not a turnover, but it's a turnover. Like,
And
Right.
Bowles came out and said Gio was aware he was getting the ball, but I guess there was some miscommunication. He didn't really want to talk about it.
Might have been a mistimed snap or something.
Things got a little
Yeah, and the only
awkward
reason
in the media scrum too.
I don't care about
Yeah,
that.
I saw it afterwards. The only reason I brought it up because I was making a point. You can't blame that. I mean, here's a guy, Gio, for whatever reason, injury. I'm not really sure what's going on behind the scenes. He was brought in to fill a role. He has no role offensively for Tampa. Like, but the fumble between Fournette, the interceptions, come on. Why can none of our guys make a play? Like, in spite of all the turnover, like, it's still a manageable game. And all of a sudden, the defense can't make a tackle on third down. Like, no one can make a play. Burrow throws the ball, people miss and gets first down on 3rd and 6. And it's just so frustrating because you're looking at all of these big name guys and it's like no one's playing up to their resume. And for me, that's the frustrating part.
And let's talk about while the offense was actually, probably the best they'd played all year in that first half.
Easily.
Yeah, I mean, on both sides of the ball, we saw the Buccaneers force a turnover, get an interception, take away from Joe Burrow on the offense.
Early, too.
Yeah, Tom Brady and the offense were rolling. They only came away with 3 points on the opening drive, but you're going to take the points against a team like Cincinnati. And they come out the next drive. They execute. They go all the way down the field. Russell Gage with an incredible catch in the corner of the end zone off of one hell of a throw. Like, I don't know how much better you wanted them to do it. And just like we said, before you know it, it's 17-0. And it's funny because the guy sitting next to me, he said this, and it kind of planted the seed because for the first time all season, we had seen the Bucs kind of get out ahead of a team early in the game, and honestly, 1 or 2 more scores maybe would have wrapped that thing up. If they were somehow able to make it 24-0, it would have been next to, I mean, I hate to say next to impossible for Cincinnati to answer when you've got Minnesota coming back 33-0 over Jeff Saturday. But it was one of those things. He said, 17 points. That's the most we're going to get out of this offense today. And we kind of laughed it off because we were feeling great. And then we watched the execution of the defense at the end of the first half. We watched Cincinnati run the hell out of that 2-minute drill, get all the way down the field. And granted, they only got 3 points. It was obviously 3 points that were going to be detrimental later on in the game. I think they got another field goal after that on the short field, which is where things started to unravel. It was that punt when the Bucs were up 17-3. So let me ask you about the play call. I know we don't talk about
that's
I know
blame the coaching staff on that.
Yeah, I know this game is not solely on the coaching staff. We've kind of covered that so far, but what do you make of the play call in that situation? You're backed up incredibly deep in your own territory. It's like, what do you have to gain on the first down right there?
Yeah, I understand the process behind it. Because you want to keep your foot on the gas right there. That would have been a huge momentum swing right there. You went 3 and out. Oh, no, it's a fake. You get the first down. If you score a touchdown on that drive, make it 24-3. Yeah, does Cincinnati come back from that? So I get the process. However, it's a questionable decision when you're up and your defense, besides that final 2 minutes, your defense was playing really well. It's not like your defense was playing awful. So I do think it's a questionable call in that moment. At that spot, if you're at the 50, okay, maybe you do it. But when you're backed up in your own territory like that, there's too many things that can go wrong. So if there's one thing, actually, I would say probably 2 things. The 2 decisions that you could really criticize this coaching staff for was in the first half, trying Ryan Suckup from 50 yards. To me, it's becoming clear you can't trust him anything over like 45, which is starting to become an issue. But to send him out there, and I believe it was a 4th and 2 or something, or 4th and 3, to not go for that and instead, send him out there for the field goal. I didn't like that decision. And then obviously the decision to run the fake punt, which is something we haven't seen that type of aggression from them all year, which is good to see. But at the same time, you would have liked that in a much different situation. And that was the beginning of the end, essentially.
And I guess I look at it slightly different. I think the effectiveness was going to come from, it's not a decision you normally make with that field position. I mean, based on the blocking, it looked like it was wide open. Like the miscommunication, I guess, was between Gio and whoever was snapping the ball. I get it. I don't know what's going on with Succop. I really wish at this point, with the way the offense does not seem to have its past explosiveness, that they would start trying out some guys. I mean, the Chargers went and got Dicker like he was headed to a concert with his girlfriend. So I'm sure there's some guys walking out that have a stronger leg than Succop, because that's going to become a real issue.
It's funny because we are in the late stages of the regular season, and I think for some teams, whether you have something to play for or not, this is when you start to see them try some things out, whether it's in special teams or on offense. Like I remember a couple of years ago, the Bucs had John Franklin, and he was sitting on the bench all year, and in the last 3 or 4 games, he was involved, and everybody was incredibly excited about this guy, and that was just the coaching staff kind of trying some things out. We saw them try some things out with Devin Tompkins, who has obviously come in and replaced Jalen Darden as the primary kick and punt returner, but he got an end around. And, that was pretty cool to see, because obviously Cincinnati's not coming into the game with any type of film on that. Maybe it's a little out of the ordinary to see him in the offensive personnel, but that wasn't anything that they saw coming. And it showed to me that maybe they are trying to, fit some new things in this offense. But as far as special teams, and as far as kicking goes, I wanted to draw this comparison. Late in the year last year, we saw Bradley Pinion attempt a couple of field goals from 50-plus yards away. I don't think he made any of them, but they tried it just because they were bored. And these games were a little different because they had a huge lead at home against the Carolina Panthers. But why not do something like that with Jake Camarda? This kid's clearly got the leg. And,
it's 50 yards, though.
It is 50 yards, but if you're going to try it with Bradley Pinion and have faith that he's going to do it, why not Camarda?
But I think in that situation, I'm pretty sure that was it was right with 2 seconds left in the half.
Sure.
I think it was a 65-yarder. So it was a little bit of a different situation. If you can't trust your kicker to at least get it close on a 50-yarder,
as much as we rally for our boy Ryan Succop, I'm probably still going to get a jersey at the end of the season. We know that we can't consistently trust him from 50 yards, right?
You might need that jersey insurance from Fanatics.
Oh,
not going to be on the team much longer.
Oh, you think this is it? Oh,
yeah,
well.
That's it for them.
And normally a kicker like Ryan, and this is kind of why I brought up, I wasn't losing my bananas over them being aggressive on special teams, because I feel like you evolve as a team from the start of the year, and when you are struggling offensively overall, I mean, when's the last time the Bucs put up 30-plus points on offense?
Kansas City.
Week 4. Week 4.
Yeah.
Right. You see, so I mean, that's internally too. Maybe Todd goes and say, hey, we got to be a little more aggressive. We got to try and steal a possession. Even though they're up against Cincinnati, we understand, the talent that Cincinnati has on offense. I'm just saying, moving forward, my opinion on Succop is, he has limitations distance-wise. You have to have an alternative plan.
Right.
I mean, we don't want to get in a situation, especially as disgusting as we've been as a football team this year, in some kind of way, we're still in first, and maybe the worst division in the history of the National Football League from top to bottom. We don't want to be in a situation come week 17, 18, whenever we play Carolina, and all of a sudden this thing comes down to a 49-yard field goal, and we know we got no shot of the ball even getting there.
Yeah, which again, you talk about the aggressiveness, though. It was 4th and 3 when they decided to go for that Succop field goal. So you're trying to be aggressive on the fake punt. Why not be aggressive in that situation as well to get the first down and potentially score a touchdown, which would have made it, I believe, a 17-0 game at that point.
Maybe Succop had convinced him that he was injured or something, and he was feeling healthy. I don't know. Whatever the issue is, we've seen enough of it, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's getting a specialist. I mean, some teams just have a specialist that they use to kick from, a certain distance. I said that because I was going to get to Darden as well. No offense to him, his entire tenure with the Bucs, when have you ever had him fielding a kick and you felt like we had a chance to run it back?
Oh,
Yeah,
no way. No way. I mean,
not
Never.
often.
Like I don't know why he was back there from the get-go. It was one of my pet peeves, with the organization, the team. Like, why do we have somebody doing something? Obviously, his skill set is not that. Maybe he can get off press coverage. Maybe he can be a receiver for you in the slot, but he's not explosive. He doesn't make anyone miss. He doesn't even have great discipline on when to field the ball and when not to field the ball. And he has bad ball security. So why is he back there? So I was so glad when they finally put Tompkins, not saying Tompkins, I don't want to put all that pressure on him, but at least he makes you feel like, okay, a 20-yard return is possible.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he did. He had what? He had the the longest kickoff return that they've had in
a decade.
like 10 years or whatever. Yeah, 50, like last week.
I think it was 53 yards last week. I don't think anyone has done that. And I remember that there was a time, because I've gone on this rant before on the show, the kickoff return touchdown is my favorite play in football. I think it's the most exciting thing that can happen in a game. I just think it's awesome because it never happens, right?
You tell
couple
that
times
to,
in a season.
You tell that to the Jacksonville fans who just witnessed the game-ending pick six. And tell me that kickoff return is the most exciting play in football.
And my thing is not about a guy running it back, but it's a guy demonstrating that he has the ability and skill to potentially run it back.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I've never seen Darden field a kick, and I was like, oh, he's explosive. Oh, he's going to change. He's going to make somebody miss. Oh, he's going to run through. He's going to get 6 more yards than he's supposed to. And I don't want to attack him, but I've never felt like that when he's been our returner.
Yeah. Hey, listen, we've talked a lot about this season and the Buccaneers not really being able to find the end zone and score a lot of points as far as their offense goes. You want to know how bad the offensive woes are for Tampa Bay? The Bucs scored 21 plus points at home yesterday, and they gave everyone free tickets to Busch Gardens, which I'm going to be honest with you, that seems like a pretty premium prize for only 21 points at home for an offense that averaged 30 points per game last season. But I do want to talk about the elephant in the room before we break down this game some more. Sean, what did you make of Tom Brady? 30 for 44 on the day, 312 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and some other turnovers as well. I mean, not a strong day, but it
good half.
It felt like that first half again was the best we have seen this offense all season. So what do you make of what happened in the second half and just how things fell apart?
Father Time's undefeated, guys. I keep telling y'all that.
Tell that to the first half.
So here's where I feel like, and I'm always very cautious and careful when I evaluate Tom. And I want people to understand when they tune into our podcast or they see these clips, I'm strictly talking about his performance this year. Mm-hmm. This isn't a career evaluation. This is me saying Tom's never been a plus athlete. So he's older now. So that average athleticism is even diminished more. He's never had a transcendent arm. He's never been elite arm talent. He's been a guy that combined football IQ, composure, plus arm talent, but not elite. Mm-hmm. And he's gotten it done in the big moments. So now you see he's like a pitcher, a starting pitcher that you got to make a middle reliever. He's not able to come in there and hit 100 on all his fastballs through the first 6-7 innings of the game till you get to the bullpen. Like he's slowing down in front of us, but he's on a team that needs him in his prime because he's not getting consistent protection. Yet because he's not a great athlete, because you get older, you're a little more wary of some of the kind. He looks uncomfortable in a lot of situations where the pocket isn't clean. And I think at this point, for him to really drive the ball, his fundamentals from his waist down have to be right. He has to be able to step into the throw, get great torque. And when you don't have great protection, I don't think you get that a lot. And so that's why I think you see a lot of balls that don't spiral, that don't seem like they're thrown with great velocity. And I don't know if I have the answer. I really don't. Because it takes an offseason to improve your O-line. Look at the Bengals. Bengals gave up, 60-plus sacks last year. Yeah, they spent the entire offseason retooling that O-line. Free agency, they made some changes. Now look how much better they are. in protecting Burrow. So maybe it's something that can happen in the future. As it pertains to Tom and this year, I don't see how this problem gets fixed. It's not like you can go QB run on 3rd and 4th, like, and we get an extra hat. You know what I mean?
Hey, I bet you,
right.
I bet you if they do, they certainly won't see it coming. So I think they have a fighting chance.
So like you're in this dilemma. You have the greatest quarterback ever, but he's at a diminished point in his career. Yet you're surrounding him with the most inconsistency of his entire tenure with the Bucs. Mm-hmm. And whether you want to put that all on the changes on the O-line, if you want to put that over, even though Chris Godwin had a great series, I mean, he doesn't look as explosive as he did pre-injury. I told you guys since the beginning of the year, Mike Evans having more trouble separating now. You know, we finally got Russell Gage back. He looked a pleasant surprise. You know, maybe that helps us. But I just think we're seeing it happen. And because the Bucs, they got Super Bowl Tom right off the beginning. You know what I mean? It's like you're a single man and you meet a woman and she tells you, you know, she owns half of Dubai. And you realize she was talking about the Dubai projects off of Bush, you know, right behind Busch Gardens. You're in this spot. But I mean, I'm hoping that they can find a way, and he's got a couple games, but I'm not optimistic, guys, that this is going to look much different. It happened with Drew Brees.
Yeah. I mean, I think Drew Brees' fall was a little bit more. See, here's the thing. I like Drew Brees towards the end, like in that Bucs game, that playoff game, like he couldn't even throw like beyond 10 yards.
Yeah, it was pretty evident.
Like Brady, I think, like you said, Sean, you know, he's never had a rocket arm. It's a good arm, but it's not a great arm. And the thing you bring up about the athleticism is interesting because one of the reasons that Brady doesn't get sacked so much, yeah, he gets the ball out quick, but he's also really good in the pocket of avoiding pressure. Not really with his legs so much, but his movement inside that pocket. And sometimes, you know, yeah, you're 45, you know, you might be a second slower, maybe a half second slower. But I think we can all agree, you know, Brady is not the same Brady that he was in 2020 and 2021. It's not the same player. However, I still believe he is a good player. And is he the same player? Is he the same player? No, he's not.
In spots, but Evan, again, he's a good player in spots, not overall. He's not going to the Pro Bowl this year. Statistically, is having his worst season that we've seen in a long time, and it's not a knock on his career.
Look at this.
The only reason that we aren't saying they should blow this whole thing up and try and get some draft picks is because the rest of the division is so terrible.
Well, yeah, I agree with you.
If there was a 10-3 component to the NFC South, we would be talking about trading Tom. We'd be talking about trying to get some draft picks. Like our conversation would be completely different.
Well, let me ask you both this, and we can kind of, you know, change the topic into what this offense is going to look like these final few weeks of the season. You know, I think we can also all come to the agreement that in the first half, it was the best we have seen the offense look all year. And Tom Brady can make all those throws still. Like, he can make the throws needed for this offense to play the best they have all year. And yeah, it's not 2020. It's not 2021 averaging 30 per game, but it's getting the job done. And for at least a little while, it held the Cincinnati Bengals, you know, to 0 points through 2 quarters, and the Bucs were up 17. So, with that being said, you know, I guess where do they go from here? Because I look at that first half and I have to think, you know, the tiny speck of optimism that I still have is like they can find a way to take that half and somehow stretch that game plan into 4 quarters. I know it obviously doesn't always work that way, but do you not get the idea that maybe they can try and do that a little bit more consistently now? Because I feel like that's the longest we have seen this offense consistently run well outside of games like Germany, you know?
Well, he had the one drive where all the passes went to Russell Gage. Then he had the other drive where all the passes went to Chris Godwin.
And they were targeting...
they got Mike Evans involved.
Yeah, they were also targeting Mike Evans a hell of a lot in the first half, too. He had close to 80 yards at halftime.
So maybe, you know, we're starting to get completely healthy at receiver, maybe. If you want to find like the light at the end of the tunnel. That's the first time that we can say that Mike Evans, Russell Gage, and Chris Godwin had a great game all in the same game. So if you're looking for optimism, that's it. Still think we got some major issues from a pass pro standpoint, specifically on third downs. Whatever we're doing schematically, teams seem to have a great feel for how to get pressure in Brady's face and make him uncomfortable. So I don't know if the answer is adding a tight end in those situations, keeping the back end, having one less eligible, but we've got to figure out a way, I think, to be more efficient on third down. That's where I would start. And if you want optimism, that's it. Gage, Godwin, Evans all had pretty good games.
Yeah. And to me, and like I said, and to me, one of the reasons you can be optimistic is because it wasn't. So the Bucs, every possession they had in the first half, it ended with a chance to score. They scored 3 times, and Ryan Succop missed the field goal. So they were moving the ball every single time they had it in that first half. And that's what made you optimistic because of the process. Tony Romo was talking on the broadcast about all the motion and the amount of play action they were doing, and the first down passes instead of runs. And we've talked about how that stat, like, it's overblown. It's more of like an eye thing, that your eyes kind of lie to you. Like, you think they run the ball every first down, but they actually don't. But like, the process was good, right? And Brady looked good, and it was looking like the offense of old, even, a lot of intermediate throws, the screens, the Godwin, obviously it worked for a touchdown. They were running the ball efficiently. When they were able to get in short yardage situations, they were converting them, and it looked good. And I think that's the reason for optimism, but they went away from it in the second half. And we got to talk about the whole second half now, because I think that's what everybody wants to talk about, because that's really the third quarter. I mean, they had one horrible quarter that completely wrecked the game. If they play average in that third quarter, they might win the game, but they just played so bad and ruined their chances to win. I'm not sure I've ever seen five straight drives that either ended in a turnover, basically turnover, because technically that muff punt wasn't a turnover because the Bengals didn't recover it.
Five turnovers in 4.5 minutes, it seemed.
Basically, it felt like it. And I mean, I don't put it on the defense at all. You're putting your defense in such a tough spot against a good offense. Yeah, like, they're gonna score. After that muff punt, the Bucs were lucky to the defense only gave up a field goal. It's still 17-6 at that point. You're like, all right, then there's the pick. You're like, okay, the T. Higgins touchdown. Then it's 17-12. You're like, okay. After all that, though, they still have a 5-point lead. If they can just even kick a field goal here, nope, there's a fumble, and then there's a touchdown, and then there's a fumble, and it was so insane to me just how quickly it transpired. I'd never seen anything like it. I have never seen a quarter and that's probably the worst quarter I've seen from any team in a very, very long time. And I've been watching the Bucs for over 10 years. The Bucs we're talking about here, and that's the worst quarter.
the Benny Hill theme is playing in my head just thinking about it. You know what I mean? Just the way things fell apart. It was almost comedic by the end of it. It felt like it would not stop.
It's like the Ron Burgundy thing. Like, oh, that escalated quickly. Like, it just snowballed, and it was hard to believe. You were like, okay, how are they going to turn the ball over here? You're saying it like it was like a joke. All right, how are they going to turn it over? And there it was. It was a different way each time. And then I believe it was before the Brady fumble where he got sacked. Gage drops the ball, which would have been a first down. The next play was third down. Brady got sacked and fumbled. Everything just completely crumbled for them down the stretch. And the one play, they had a bunch of drives, right? Okay, so the muff punt, the pick, the fumble, the pick, and then Camarda punted. The last drive of the game, they scored a touchdown. If they didn't turn the ball over, they scored a touchdown, basically. So it was just, I've never seen anything like it. I was like, this is like crazy. I was like, are they doing this on purpose? Like, it almost seemed that way. And it's like I said, the Bengals have to come out. I think the Bucs still outgained them in yards and everything. Like, the Bengals have to come out of that game feeling like pretty fortunate that like their defense was, and like their defense played better, but like the Bucs also just didn't execute at all.
Yeah, it was interesting. They were up 17-3. They gave up 31 unanswered.
Yeah.
You don't see that. You don't. And
Hard to do.
really, when they scored with 52 seconds left, I don't know why they went for 2. I mean, mathematically, that didn't make any sense to me either. I'm like, are we living in some kind of alternate like reality here? What's going on?
Right. Yeah, it would have made it. It would. I understood.
Would have been a
made
9-point game.
Yeah, if it would have made an 8-point game, okay, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, 9-point game. I don't know.
Now I know we talk about. I know we talk about execution, and we've been finding some silver lining today with some players who played well. I thought the defense, the title of our game preview show was, can the shorthanded Bucs stop Joe Burrow? And it seemed like they did that. Just like you said, it's hard to blame the defense for most of what happened on Sunday because of the short fields that, Cincinnati was given. But Carlton Davis played one of the best games of the season in the absence of Jamel Dean, right? Some other guys in that secondary have not been out there. This defensive line, when you're missing Shaq Barrett and you're missing Vita Vea and all of these other players, they're missing pretty much all of their outside linebackers. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka obviously was shaken up this week, but he gave it a go. I thought they played incredibly well given the circumstances. And at the end of the year, honestly, in the grand scheme of things, we're going to look back at the Tom Brady era, and I think people are going to realize I don't think this defense is ever going to get the credit it probably deserves for the year that they are having. Because while we talk about the lack of takeaways, we talk about, they haven't been as explosive as 2020's defense was, statistically, they have been so much better at just preventing offenses from scoring points. And that's going to win you games when you have an offense that can score points.
So Carlton,
I brought that up a couple of weeks ago. Remember we were talking about it, and I said, when you look at what they've given up,
they've been playing well enough to win pretty much every week.
And I guess what kind of keeps them in the bullseye is, one, from a turnover standpoint, they're not great in that specific area. So they don't have a lot of splash plays, and they just got to do a better job of tackling on third down.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's probably the part that kind of frustrates people, whether it's right, wrong, fair, unfair. You obviously see the offense is struggling. Yeah, you have a chance with time left, on like 3 consecutive third downs to get somebody on the ground, and they don't get it done. In any of those situations, now the clock's running. Now you're in, okay, we need a miracle mode, because not only did you not get them off the field, you end up giving up more points as well.
Yeah, but, another thing as well, we talk about execution on the offensive side of the ball. On the defense, I know that we're giving them credit here, but the lack of turnovers, you do have to be a little frustrated because of the chances that they did have against Cincinnati. Let's face it, the Sean Murphy bunting, couldn't hang on to the football, would have had a sideline pick, couldn't do it. It's fine.
Tricky catch, but got to catch.
Tricky catch, but it's in your hands. You got to get it. And then the other time that I think of was play action. Joe Burrow went for that little underhanded Pat Mahomes throw, and there's 3 defensive linemen and Levante David right there, and none of them can come away with the football. I know it's tough.
To be fair, that's happening like that.
I'm not going to sit here and gripe about it. I still want to give the defense their credit, obviously, but just the chances that they had, this is, the process of them getting a little bit closer to plays that could potentially be turnovers.
Well, the one guy,
but they have to make those plays. To whom much is given, much is required. I'll be the first to tell you, when I was a rookie, there were some games on offense. We were trying to figure it out now. Yeah. And our defense, they didn't have to be good for us to be successful. It had to be great.
Yeah. And
so fair or unfair, I hold those guys at such a high standard because I know the talent that exists over there. And in these kind of games, you gotta be great. Is that fair? Probably not, but it's reality.
And this has
it is.
This has been a great.
We needed them to get a turnover. We needed them to force a fumble, to get an interception. To make every play on third down and just keep giving it back to Tom and the offense, and hopefully they get it right. And they did it. Now, am I going to blame them for the game? No, but I'm going to point it out that the Bengals did score 31 unanswered. We could have held them to field goals. We didn't have to give up 4 touchdown passes in those situations. So if I'm Coach Bowles, that's the conversations I'm having. We're not going to sit over here and feel sorry for ourselves. Tom, you guys got to do better. At the same time, it's why it's a team. Like, all it took was one play by one of our superstars on defense to kind of change the whole momentum in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't get it.
Yeah, you're looking at everything. I mean, the fourth down. I think that was people weren't talking about that enough of how critical.
The jump off sides.
Yeah. Although Joe Burrow, 100%, that's a false start because he moves his leg. But I don't know why they didn't call that. But the fourth down when Joe Burrow was sacked. I mean, I don't know why he didn't throw the ball away, but he was sacked at midfield.
Was it a loss of like 25 yards? It was ridiculous.
And Levante David gets called for the hold. That one changed the whole game to me. That changed the entire game. The Bengals ended up scoring a touchdown. The Bucs would have had the ball at midfield at that point. The Bucs were still up at that point. I think that call really was like the death nail, because that would have changed. You want to talk about momentum swinging right back. That would have definitely swung the momentum right back in Tampa's favor. And when you get a penalty like that, it's just so deflating. So I didn't think the refs were very good on Sunday, but when you give up 4 straight turnovers, you don't get to complain about the refs too much. But one bright spot on the defense was Carlton Davis, who had his best game of the year, possibly of his career, had that interception off a Keanu O'Neal deflection, which it was good to see them get the turnover early, right on that first drive, make a splash play like that. From Next Gen Stats, Carlton Davis aligned across from Jamar Chase on 33 of 40 routes. That's an 83% shadow. And he limited Chase to 3 catches on 8 targets for 32 yards and had an interception. He forced 5 tight windows, which is tied for second most of any wide receiver DB matchup this season. So, I mean, Davis did a great job against one of the best receivers in the NFL. And you'd like to see it a bit more consistently. And with Jamel Dean out, a guy like Davis needed to step up, and he did that. It's just, I was pretty disappointed with Levante David. I thought he might have had his worst game of the year. The holding penalty, which was a little bit ticky-tack. I think by rule it's a hold, but like I've seen that not called. And then, the missed tackles that he had, just like you were talking about, Sean. When they had a chance to get off the field, they'd check it down. Levante would miss a tackle. The dude would get an extra 3 yards. It was just small things like that. So I didn't think David was particularly good, but I thought if you're looking at one that really changed momentum, that fourth down, that was just a killer. And I think, and you just what you talked about earlier, so you made a great point when you said it's like an avalanche. As soon as one thing goes wrong, it just keeps going. It just keeps going. Nobody can put a stop to it and push it the other way. It just keeps going downhill. And I think yesterday was a perfect example of that. A perfect example, because just like the Carolina game, the Mike Evans drop, right? In that Carolina game, the Donovan Smith hold against San Francisco. It always seems like when one thing happens, it just spirals and spirals and spirals, and they can't get back there. So it was a great point you brought up earlier.
So the Buccaneers a little under a week away from playing on Christmas Day. That'll be in Arizona against the Cardinals, who lost their starting quarterback a couple of weeks ago. So
and then lost Colt McCoy yesterday to a concussion.
Yeah.
So I mean, he's likely not going to play. So it's likely Trace McSorley, Penn State led Trace McSorley.
I mean, this guy's got a song written about him, and you're telling me he's not about to throw 350, 400 yards on the Bucs next week just because. But looking at what the Buccaneers have left, you got Arizona and you got 2 division games. Those are going to be huge, Carolina and Atlanta. I think with a win over Carolina, they can pretty much salt this thing away, right?
The Bucs?
Yes.
Yeah.
Their path to clinching?
Yeah. It all depends. So Carolina lost to Pittsburgh. Then Carolina plays Detroit. So assuming Detroit beats Carolina, Detroit's one of the hottest teams in the league right now. Assuming they lose to Detroit, whether the Bucs win versus the Cardinals or not, which they should, the Cardinals are one of the worst teams in the NFL right now. Like, I understand you struggle on the road. You're going to West Coast. there isn't much of an excuse to lose that game.
How many times have we said that this year, though?
But they've struggled. But like this is like I think the Cardinals are worse than the Panthers. They're worse than the Steelers. Like they are worse than some of these teams. So like there is zero excuse to lose that game now. But if they do, they beat Carolina. Yeah, you're still in the driver's seat. And then, that game versus Atlanta, though, might matter if Carolina can beat New Orleans the last game of the year. So it wouldn't be over yet. But there is a scenario where the Bucs go 1-2 in their final 3 and still win the division. The only way they really won't win the division is if they go winless, which if that happens, you're talking about major changes that need to happen here.
So whether we like it or not, playoffs, here we come, is what I'm hearing.
I still think it's likely. Despite all the frustration, I still think they're going to, eventually. Because I don't think they're going to go winless.
Yeah. What do you think, Sean?
Man, all I know is I don't know what to think this year in the National Football League. Colts were up 33-0 at the half and lost outright.
How about
Patriots Patriots threw the game away. I don't know what's going on. It's some really bad football. I think college, just big picture, is putting less and less educated talent into the National Football League. Like the guys are talented, but they lack football IQ. Like they lack, in my opinion, overall. And I think that's what you're starting to see. And hopefully, man, we can find a way to win this division. I was more confident 2 weeks ago than I am now. Not necessarily because we lost to San Francisco and Cincy, but it was the way we lost.
Right.
I mean, we got woodshedded out in California and fell apart down in Tampa. So some soul searching has to happen, man. Hopefully we can find a way. The thing is, Dallas just lost to
the Jags.
Jacksonville. Giants beat the Commanders. I mean, so outside of Philly, it's not like the NFC just looks vaunting.
Yeah.
I mean, even though Minnesota came back, they were down 33-0 to the
a
Colts.
bad Colts team. Yeah.
Right. So it's not like there's a whole bunch of fear involved, as far as who we could potentially, compete against. So we'll see. Hopefully they get it right, man.
Yeah, I can understand that viewpoint. And honestly, at the end of the day, I know that this is such a fan point of view to have, because a bad football team is a bad football team. But at the end of the day, once you get to the playoffs, anything can happen. Everybody's 0-0 once you get to the postseason. So I think as long as the Bucs can make the tournament with a good defense and Tom Brady on your roster, even though he's not the Tom Brady of 2 years ago, he still is the greatest of all time. And I feel like that's going to give you a chance until your season is over. So we will obviously see how things shake out. But ladies and gentlemen, with all of that being said, that's just about going to do it for this week's episode of the Cannon Fire podcast. Sean, any last words before we sign off here?
Shoot. I don't know, man. I'm as frustrated as everybody else. Give me some rest tonight. Hopefully see a good Monday night game and get ready for next week. You got to put this one behind you. And you got to come out and you just got to finish strong, man. Just we're still in first. Let's win a game. Let's look good doing it. Let's get some positivity. Like I said, NFC still is wide open outside of Philly.
Just another week in first place. You guys can find Shaun King on Twitter at Real Shaun King and Instagram at Coach Shaun King. He's also the host of VSiN Primetime Live Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the VSiN network. Where can people check that out again?
On YouTube television, Hulu, Fubo. Also, you can download the VSiN app. That's VSIN, and you can listen for free. Or for a small fee, I think it's like $4 or $5 a month, you can watch the visual component as well.
Perfect. Follow the show on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. All of those are Cannon Fire Podcast. Best place to go for updates on the show, and of course, Buccaneer news as it happens. Speaking of Bucs news as it happens, you can follow my co-host Evan on Instagram at Bucs_daily. You can also find him on Twitter at EvanNFL. Check out his written work at BucsNation.com. What have you got coming up this week?
All the usual predictions review. The 3 burning questions, which I just recently started, so I'm going to be doing that this week, and then the stock report, I guess, however you want to call it. I'm going to be looking at some of the players. There's going to be some It'll be mixed because like it's a tale of two halves. So it'll be a nice little mix this week.
Yeah. Last but not least, you can find myself, Instagram, and Twitter at Rhettakus, RHETTAKUS. If you follow me, I will follow you back. We'll talk to you later this week with Trevor Sikkema of Pro Football Focus. We'll get his thoughts on this Bucs team and much more. I'm your host, Rhett Matthew, signing off for my co-host, Evan Wanish and Shaun King. We'll talk to you guys in the next one. Until then, and as always, thanks for listening, and go Bucs.
Nice.